Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Expat Chapter, brought to you by Blevins Franks Wealth Management. Across Europe, Blevins Franks are trusted advisors to over 5,000 British nationals and other nationals that have connections to the UK. In these broadcasts, we discuss the issues affecting those people now they've relocated to France or thinking of relocating to France. The subjects we discuss are subjects and situations our clients have encountered, and we frequently have to answer those questions. And maybe these are questions that you didn't even know you needed to ask. So my name is Rob Kay, and I'm joined this morning by Tom Maron.
Hello, good morning.
And James Griffiths.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. So this week, a subject that Tom wants us to discuss. Can France be an unlikely tax haven? I understand, Tom, that you've been dealing with some people who were considering Dubai and didn't want to consider France because they didn't think it was tax efficient.
Yeah, that's right. So some months ago, I was speaking to a chap. Initially, as you say, he was considering France. He'd always spent his summers in France with his wife, always enjoyed it. But then he called me up and he said, Tom, I'm afraid we're going to have to put this project on ice because I've been thinking about it and I'm just paying too much tax. I've been paying so much tax over the years in the UK, and I'm worried that if I move to France, that's going to continue to be the case. And so actually I've started to look at Dubai. And of course, the reason why he was interested in Dubai is, as many people will know, it's cited as being a tax-free jurisdiction. So I asked him the question, well, what particular taxes is it that you're most bothered about? And his reply to me was, well, it's mostly to do with inheritance planning. I've got a fairly sizable estate. I've got children and grandchildren, and I just don't want them to pay 40% inheritance tax, which would be the current position if he stays as a UK resident. And this is when I hit him with the bombshell. Well, two bombshells, really. So the first is that I explained to him that actually moving to the Middle East doesn't resolve the inheritance tax issue on his UK assets. So if you have assets such as property, investments, cash that are held in the UK, those will continue to be accessible for UK inheritance tax, regardless of where you're living in the world. But the other bombshell is that because of the way that the UK inheritance rules have changed, if somebody has been resident in the UK for more than 10 years and then they move to another country, then actually they're still on the hook for UK inheritance tax on their worldwide assets for another 10 years following the move. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but Dubai or the UAE is not one of those exceptions. So actually, by moving to Dubai, this gentleman wasn't doing anything to improve his inheritance tax position at all. If we take the example of somebody who moves and then gets hit by a bus, then unfortunately the liability is the same as if they had stayed in the UK. And this brought us onto the conversation about France, because France is in a slightly peculiar situation because France has a treaty that covers inheritance with the UK. And there aren't that many countries that have an inheritance treaty with the UK, but France is one of them. And the treaty says essentially that if you're living in France, then your worldwide assets are subject not to UK inheritance tax, but to French succession tax. So potentially somebody moving to France can reduce their UK inheritance tax bill to zero, which is the suggestion that I put to this gentleman, and he was very intrigued by that. Now, obviously, we need to have a separate conversation about French inheritance and French succession tax, which maybe we'll circle back to. But the bottom line is, moving to France could reduce this potential client's inheritance tax duty to zero.
One of the things that, in my experience, people come across or don't realise is that when you leave the UK, you might have gone, but if your assets haven't, I think we touched on this in a previous podcast, but people think if they move away, all of a sudden they've moved away from UK IHT. But that's not the case, is it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if you leave the UK now, following the changes made by Rachel Reeves, you're on the hook for UK inheritance tax, or at least your estate is still on the hook for UK inheritance tax for a further 10 years. So that is one of the things that people fail to consider. And then, as you say, the other thing is that UK assets are still accessible to UK inheritance tax, regardless of which country you move to around the world.
Yeah. So, James, there's some advantages clearly from a succession point of view for France over, let's say, Dubai. But Dubai's got a double tax treaty with the UK. So, can France offer some advantages from a capital gains or an income tax point of view compared to the advantages Dubai maybe offers somebody?
Yeah, well, I mean, Dubai is known for being kind of a tax haven, isn't it? So there are tax benefits for going there. But I was actually in the same situation previously. I was offered the chance to go and work out in Dubai, and I personally, my wife and I, decided it wasn't right for us, and we went elsewhere. But yeah, even if you come to France, if you structure your affairs properly, and you're not working essentially, if you're retired or living off kind of investment income, you can arrange your investments very tax efficiently for your time in France. So it can be a kind of a tax haven in plain sight, really. So yeah, there are a number of benefits of coming to France. As Tom said, getting rid of that UK inheritance tax tail is a great one. But actually, you can have a great standard of living here compared to places like Dubai. Because I mean, I saw a thing a while ago now saying that even the Côte d'Azur, the kind of area we're all in, the three of us, down, which is known to be quite an expensive part of the south of France, is 60% cheaper for residential properties than Dubai. You also have great healthcare here. So with the healthcare in France, we're very well looked after, and it is at a reasonable cost. Whereas if you go to places like Dubai, you do need to take out some decent private medical insurance, which is then linked to your age, your previous health conditions, and could be quite expensive. So yeah, you might save a little bit on tax in Dubai versus France, but actually there are additional costs that need to also be considered in terms of kind of lifestyle, living, medical fees. Which again, if you're going to Dubai as a way of mitigating or reducing your inheritance tax liability, people don't do that when they're young. They tend to be older in age, and they generally have more health issues, and they've kind of got to a point in life where they want to enjoy what they've earned. So it's not just letting the tax tail of the dog wag the whole dog.
I think I had this conversation with the client only yesterday. There's still the perception that France is a highly taxed jurisdiction, and I was actually explaining to them that for a British retiring expatriate to France, the big difference is the social charges, and if you can avoid the French social charges, it really does compare really well with the UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Tom, going back to James's comments, what can we do in France that's going to help people from a succession planning point of view? Maybe you've got an example that you use with those clients or with other clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually quite a lot that you can do. I think that France gets a bad reputation when it comes to inheritance, because people read about these forced heirship rules in France, and they read about French tax, and they assume that they're going to be paying more, or their estate is going to be paying more. Their beneficiaries will pay higher rates of tax than if they remained in the UK, and actually that's not the case. So I can give you an example. Imagine you've got two retirees, they've got maybe 3 children, and between the 3 children there are 6 grandchildren. There's a way that you can actually structure cash, liquid investments, liquid assets into a structure that gives you additional succession tax allowances that are on top of the normal French succession allowances. And in that kind of situation, you can actually create a position where the beneficiaries between all of them have a total tax-free allowance of around about 3.5 million euros. Now that compares quite favourably when you think about the tax allowance in the UK is generally a maximum of £1 million. So yeah, I mean, France in these kind of situations, particularly if you've got multiple beneficiaries, it can be really interesting in terms of inheritance tax planning. As we've touched upon, it is complicated. It does need careful planning, and there are some cross-border elements that come into it as well. So we would always encourage people that are looking to move to France just to speak to us and do the planning.
Yeah, I agree. But Tom, I suppose the one thing that people don't realise, that is that the UK has a unique double tax treaty with regard to capital taxes such as succession with the UK. So if you, excuse me, making a plug for people moving to France here, but rather than moving to Spain, where the new UK 10-year domicile rules apply, from a French point of view, you move to France, and all of a sudden you've got a lot more flexibility with your planning.
Absolutely. If somebody's moving to France and they sell down their UK assets, sell their property, sell their investments, move them out of the UK, as I kind of alluded to earlier, they're reducing their UK inheritance tax bill to zero. So it's really simply moving to France and doing some restructuring. It can be some really interesting planning.
So, James, it sounds like a no-brainer to me. It sounds like France is a clear winner. I, like yourself, as somebody who lived not in Dubai but in Bahrain, which is just nearly as far, just being so far away from friends and family, and a 10, 12-hour flight, and at the moment, forget about the war, but it does have an impact. France stands up well compared to the Middle East. Yeah.
Well, yeah, my wife and I think so. So we lived in Singapore and Hong Kong, and that's where we chose over Dubai. This is going back a little while ago, which was great to live there. But actually, if you've got family in the UK, it's hard work getting back. It's very expensive, and you kind of long haul flying isn't the best. And we as a family chose France because it kind of ticked all the boxes for us. The kind of the lifestyle, the proximity to the UK and where friends and family are, to have the ability to go back and see the family that are still in the UK, but also they come and see us. We spend a lot more time together now than what I did when I was in Asia, because it's just so much closer, so much easier to get to. So yeah, there are some real benefits of being in France, and that's The tax benefits are great as well, because you can structure things well from an inheritance and succession tax point of view. As you mentioned before, if you're not paying the kind of full social charge in France is actually more tax efficient than the UK again. So not only from a kind of an inheritance tax point of view, during your lifetime as well, it's more tax efficient, and it's in my opinion, it's a brilliant quality of life that we get down here.
So Tom, you're nodding away though. So you obviously agree. Did these clients you were talking to, did they agree? Did they choose to come to France? And if they did, was there anything special you did for them?
Yeah, they're clients now, so they have set up France, and it was the inheritance situation that won it. Because if they'd moved to the UAE, they'd still be in the same position regarding UK inheritance tax, and their belief is that the UK inheritance tax situation will only get worse, and I think there is some merit in that idea. So yeah, moving to France reduced their inheritance tax bill to zero. They've done some planning around French succession tax, and I think ultimately, I agree with the points that both of you have made. You've got, when it comes to Dubai versus France, the UAE or the Middle East, it's further away. You've got the distance, you've got the higher costs, and potentially you've got that UK inheritance tax tail. So it's not going to tick the boxes for everybody. Having said that, it's a lifestyle choice as well. Some people will like that environment. But I can tell you from living in France for 10, 11 years that many people also enjoy the Côte d'Azur, and it's a great place to be. And we wouldn't be here, would we, if that weren't the case?
Absolutely.
No. But the point on with your client, it was before the conflict in the Middle East, wasn't it? So actually now there is that conflict in the Middle East. We've had a number of inquiries. But actually I was speaking to someone that's involved with a private school down here, and they have normally kind of 100 or so applications a year. And it tripled. For this September's intake, it tripled, predominantly for people looking to get out, or families looking to get out of the Middle East and seeing down here as a kind of a safe haven. So there is a hell of a lot of interest at the moment from people coming out of Dubai and the Middle East to France because of the kind of the tension there.
Things that we always say is, don't let the tax tail of the dog wag the whole dog. But I think when you're looking at where you're going to move to, tax is a strong consideration. But actually, far too many people look at it at a high level. But actually, if you take advice and you really dig in, you can then find out that as long as you rearrange your affairs correctly, you can put yourself in a really quite interesting tax position. Right? Good conversation, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. thank you for the listeners. Thank you for tuning in.
Very good.
If you would like to know more about Blevins Franks, you can find out anything you want by visiting our website. If you like and subscribe, you'll get the next podcast recording. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all. Goodbye.